Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of Bite Size Rallying. And this time, it's time to focus on this car, the Ford Focus World Rally Car, and specifically the Focus World Rally Car that was campaigned by Ford Motor Company in the World Rally Championship in the stunning martini racing colours from 1999 to 2002. So, picture the scene. 1998, and Ford had been campaigning the predecessors of this car, the Ford Escort, in the World Rally Championship since 1993. They've achieved a good run of victories with the Escort Cosworth and then latterly the Escort World Rally Car, but there have been no world titles for either the drivers or the manufacturers. The Japanese counterparts Subaru, Mitsubishi and Toyota have done all the dominating on that front. But Ford's commitment to the World Rally Championship is absolute, and in an underlining statement of that commitment, for the 1999 season, they did the deal in 98 with the legendary Scottish rally star Colin McRae. And Ford knew that this was a real opportunity that they had to harness, having this superstar driver in the team with McRae's flamboyant driving style, his ability to get the car at some amazing angles, and that video game franchise, Colin McRae Rally. They knew that McRae, with his one-liners, his quips to the journalists, was PR dynamite. And the Ford PR machine, upon signing Colin McRae, they really harnessed that opportunity. And it was certainly a very high profile signing with a £3 million a year contract for the Scotsman. And his co-driver Nicky Grist obviously was also had a good deal, I'm sure. So we're into 1999, and as I said, the Ford PR machine was really on it. There was a fantastic TV commercial with a youngster that looked very much like we envisaged Colin would have looked as a youngster. And there was the shots of Colin with his dad Jimmy in 1980, I think they depicted it as, driving a Ford Sierra, although Sierra wasn't launched until 82, so I'm not sure how that worked. But yeah, it was a very good PR campaign, and the Martini Ford racing team steamrolled into Monaco for the Monte Carlo Rally, and an event that the Scotsman admitted never particularly liked. On the road he took third place. However, the Fords were actually running under protest. The water pump was actually not a homologated part, and that fantastic result, third place on the opening rally for McRae, was actually excluded after the event. So that wasn't a great start. And when journalists asked Colin about what had happened after the rally, Colin had his first run-in with his new boss, Martin Whittaker, when actually he said to the press that he was really dismayed that they'd not managed to get the part homologated. So it was his first run-in on his first rally with his new boss. But still, he took the car to third place on the road. Next time out in Sweden, McRae didn't finish, but his teammate, the Swede Thomas Radstrom, finished third. So the Ford on paper, well, not on paper, but in reality, had two third place finishes in its first two events, which was an encouraging start. And then we got to the Safari Rally, one of the toughest events in the World Rally Championship. And against all odds. Now, Malcolm Wilson, who was running the Ford team from his base in Cockermouth, stipulated that he was going to build a strong rally car. He perhaps knew, having Colin McRae on board, that it might have been a good idea to build a strong rally car. But in that Safari Rally, Wilson was very true to his word, because Colin and Nicky Grist were actually quite surprised at what punishment the Ford could have managed to withstand on the recce. And it was in those days you could recce an actual rally car, so they could give the car a really good shakedown. And they were actually very surprised with the punishment that the car had taken. And Wilson's philosophy was that if we want to win these tough events, we have to change the suspension at every service park. So the program, high investment program, when they factored in changing the suspension, changing the gearboxes on a regular basis, and in doing so, lo and behold, McRae and Grist took victory on all the third rally. They won the Safari Rally in this new car, the Ford Focus, which was a fantastic achievement. And they actually followed it up the following day in Portugal. They won again, and people were beginning to say, Colin McRae, Nicky Grist, Ford Focus, they're on for the title. But Malcolm Wilson expressed a word of caution. He still said, I remember him saying after those two rallies when interviewed by journalists, that it's early days, the car's got a lot of development potential left. It's a 4-year programme, it's the start, don't get too carried away. And sure enough, throughout the rest of the 1999 season, they never finished another rally. Suspension failures, gearbox failures, turbocharged engines, and a couple of accidents. The car didn't actually score any more points, let alone more victories. So it was 2 victories was fantastic, but it was a very, very poor season after that. So going into the year 2000, and Colin was joined by Spaniard Carlos Sainz, that they actually previously worked together, as we know, at Subaru, and it was despite obviously some of the running in Catalonia in 1995 that we've talked about previously, it was a proven partnership. Sainz, with his ability to galvanise a team, to bring a team together, fantastic test and development driver, and obviously Colin as well was a renowned test and development driver, but also obviously the quickest driver in the World Championship, perhaps on a par with Mackinnon. Some people may say Mackinnon, but they were certainly the 2 quickest drivers. So it was certainly a winning partnership. The 2000 season got off to a pretty good start. There were some solid results throughout the year 2000. McRae won in Spain, won in Greece, and with some solid second place as well, including second place in Finland, which was about where you need to be an expert. And so we got towards the end of the season with 3 rounds remaining. We're going to the island of Corsica for the Tour de Corse, and an event that Colin won previously in the Subaru, and was a renowned tarmac expert as well in those days, as well as being the gravel expert. So there was the full team was optimistic, and at that point they had a tilt at the title in year 2000. But unfortunately, it wasn't to materialise. Colin had a horrific accident going into a left-hander, ended up down a ravine, and he was actually trapped upside down in the car for something like almost an hour. And because of smell the petrol, Colin was slipping in and out of consciousness, and it looked extremely serious. Nicky Grist, his co-driver, certainly saved the day, along with Bernie Shrewsbury, the physio, because the Corsican rescue services didn't seem to know what to do. They didn't seem to know how to release somebody from a competition car with a roll cage. Okay, they'll play chopping the roof off a Fiat Panda or Renault Clio, but they didn't really seem to have the expertise to understand how they needed to take charge of this situation. So it was Nicky, Bernie Shrewsbury and Colin's dad Jimmy that actually did garner the truth and told people what to do. And unfortunately, Colin was released in I think it was just within that magic hour. And at that point, he admitted in his biography that his life flashed before him. He was thinking, I've made so much money, I don't need to continue with this, I've got a child, etc. And it was a very harrowing time. And however, he did actually, he was airlifted into hospital, and ultimately did make a reasonable recovery. And I think once the red mist had glazed over, he did make that commitment to come back to rallying, and a stalwart effort to get back 6 weeks later into the San Remo rally, and took a fighting 6th place. But obviously the title was a 6th place points. The title was pretty much over by that point, and the 2000 season ended without the title. But luckily, obviously, Colin and Nicky survived that horrific accident. So going into 2001, and was this going to be the year? We had 2 years of development of the car by this point, and the car was a proven winner. The Peugeots were, Marcus Gronholm took the title from the Peugeot 206, was certainly a force to be reckoned with. But the Focus WRC was certainly there in that stellar driver lineup. And certainly, McRae won in Argentina in year 2001, in Cyprus and Greece, and some solid results. Again, coming into Rally GB, as it had been with the Subarus from previous years, the title was on. It was actually a 4-year title fight that year. Colin and Richard Burns, the 2 Brits, were firm favourites, and the media waxed lyrical about the battle of the Brits. But in theory, Carlos Sainz as well and Tommy Mackinnon could win the title, but they certainly had an outside chance. And it was all about McRae versus Burns. It was the famous press shots in Motorsport News and All Sport with McRae and Burns back to back, and the battle was on. And on that first day, Colin drove the Focus like a man possessed. I don't think we'd ever seen the car drive so quickly. And it was visibly quicker than everyone else, as we've come to expect through Colin, particularly on Rally GB. However, one of the wow stages early on that first day, Colin and Nicky Grist had a horrendous accident and destroyed the car. So at such a point that obviously the car was destroyed, it was game over, and they'd thrown a title away, a manufacturer's title opportunity, a driver's title, and basically Colin threw it away through being rather too flamboyant. But he knew his mission was to send a message to Richard Burns in particular that he was the quickest driver, and he would go and lead the rally and build up a good lead going into day 2, and that was the game plan. But unfortunately it didn't materialise. Ultimately Richard went on to win the championship. So 2002, obviously it looked But like the title was on again in 2002 with some solid results. Sainz won in Argentina, one of only 2 victories he gained with the Focus WRC in his period in the period campaign. McRae won in Greece, driving this car. Driving this car X7 FMC. So we had the victory in Greece. This was actually Colin's penultimate victory. Obviously before his untimely death in 2007. So he followed up the Greece victory with another victory on the Safari Rally, driving a different car, a 51 plate car. But so Colin took those victories that year. But it wasn't a vintage season. The car actually managed to set on fire to itself in Finland, and in New Zealand, Colin and Nicky had an accident, and which signalled a rather frosty time in the relationship, and McRae only managed, I think it was 5th place on Rally GB, which was certainly a below par performance for Colin McRae in his home rally. And at the end of that, Colin and Nicky went separate ways for 2003 after 6 years together and many victories. So the McRae Ford Focus partnership came to an end. He signed for Saturn for 2003, and it came to him without any titles, unfortunately. But actually, in that period, the Focus WRC took 11 World Championship victories, and Colin and Nicky achieved 9 of those. So it was a very successful period in the career of the car and the driver. And obviously, Carl's backing that up as well, with always there and solid results. And obviously, this car was certainly a sight to behold on the stages. And with that iconic martini livery that we've seen previously on Lanciers and Porsches for a few years as well, it was a great period in the history of the World Rally Championship. And so there we have it. Ford Focus Martini World Rally Car, Colin McRae, Carlos Sainz, Thomas Radstrom to a lesser degree, and so there you go. Certainly a key moment in World Rally history. And so I enjoyed this episode of Bite Size Rallying, and I'll see you again on the next one. Thank you very much.